Throwing food on the grill may look easy, but there's an art to getting it just right. If you've ever had steak that chewed like a hockey puck or corn on the cob, scorched to charcoal, then you'll want to hear these simple tips to up your grilling game.
Freshly grilled hot dogs are a summertime favorite. What's better than grilling out by the pool? But if you want to recreate those perfectly grilled hot dogs of your dreams, you're going to want to avoid these top mistakes people make when grilling hot dogs. First up, if you're not buying the right kinds of hot dogs, you're just not going to have a stellar experience. Yes, it's tempting to buy the budget brand hot dogs that are on sale, but you'll regret it. The bare minimum measure of quality when it comes to hot dogs? An all-beef center.
Hashtag unbreakable beef bond.
If the packaging says that the hot dog is made up of some strange mixture of chicken, beef, and pork, you probably ought to stay away. After all, you don't really want to mix up all of those proteins in any other dish you make, so why would you want to do that for your hot dog? Another sign of short quality? If the hot dog has a natural casing made from pork or lamb, you're likely in good hands. You want something that's going to snap when you bite into it. When a hot dog snaps, that means it's fresh. Along these lines, you want to pay attention to what your hot dog's packaging says about its casings or skin. Natural pork and lamb casings are the most desirable as they not only provide that snap, but they also hold in all of the hot dog's natural juices. But don't be fooled if you see a hot dog that claims it's made with a cellulose casing, because that's not a real casing at all and you don't want it. What's the difference? In the instance of a natural casing, the casing is retained through cooking and then when eating. If a hot dog uses a cellulose casing, though, that means the maker simply fills the casing with their hot dog meat, smokes it, and then peels the casing off before packaging and selling the hot dog. That means the hot dog doesn't come with an intact casing and it is essentially skinless. That means no snap and nothing to hold in those juices. So when you're shopping for some hot dogs, look for the natural casings only. According to the USDA, hot dogs last about 2 weeks in the fridge unopened. Then, after opening, they last a week. However, if you pop them in the freezer, they'll last 1 to 2 months at top quality and indefinitely at subpar quality. But just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. The problem isn't with the freezing itself, though, it's in the defrosting. According to today's experts, if you don't thoroughly ensure that your dogs have completely come up to room temperature all the way through, they just won't cook evenly, and you'll have a difficult time. You might even find that your hot dog is burnt to a crisp on the outside before it even becomes remotely warm on the inside. So to play it safe, don't freeze your hot dogs. Just purchase the hot dogs within 2 weeks of when you plan to eat them.
Hot dogs, it's what's good in life.
Once you're ready to start cooking those hot dogs, you need to take a look at your grill. Just like you wouldn't cook with a grime-encrusted dirty pan in your kitchen, you don't want to cook on a grime-encrusted dirty grill in your backyard. So give it a clean with a grill brush first and foremost. Then you want to oil up your grill ahead of turning on the heat. This is vital to your hot dog cooking experience because if you skip this step, you're very likely to end up with hot dogs that simply won't rotate easily, or that altogether stick to your grates. And no one wants to spend their grill session ripping hot dogs off a grate. For oil, you can either spray your grill grates with a nonstick spray from the kitchen or use a paper towel with a bit of high heat oil and manually wipe down the grates. It's happened to us all before. You start up the grill and really get it going, you throw on some hot dogs, and then the distraction happens. Whether it's your thirst for another frosty beer from the fridge, a friend or family member who's just arrived at the barbecue, or shooing a hungry pup from beneath your feet. Whatever that distraction is, it effectively gets you away from the grill. Then when you return, your hot dogs are worse for wear. You might not even notice it at first, but once you start really paying attention to how your hot dogs turn out, you'll definitely realize that the more attention and love you give them, the better they'll be. That's because hot dogs take very little time to cook, and if you're cooking grass-fed beef hot dogs, they'll take even less time to cook. According to a Men's Health article, your average hot dog only takes about 2 to 3 minutes to char on each side, which means your hot dog will cook in 6 minutes or less. If you're cooking grass-fed beef hot dogs, they'll take about 1 minute per side, or 2 minutes total, due to the lower fat content. In other words, walking away for even a few seconds could spell disaster for your hot dogs. We've already talked about how a high-quality hot dog is apt to have that tasty, all-natural casing that just snaps when you bite into it, releasing all of those tasty spices and juices. But what if your hot dog snaps prematurely? That's exactly what can happen if you put the hot dogs over too high a heat, allowing the casing to burst and leaving you with a hot dog that's less than ideal. According to the Hoffman Sausage Company, which has been making German-style hot dogs since the late 1800s, high grill flames are your enemy when it comes to cooking hot dogs. The company, which is based out of Syracuse, New York, told Syracuse.com. The trick is to not put the hot dogs over a high flame, otherwise they're apt to split and burst open and leak juices and fat, which can lead to flare-ups.
I fought a grill in the grill one.
But on the other side of things, while you don't want to cook your hot dogs over high heat due to the risk of your hot dogs bursting open, you also don't want to cook your hot dogs over too low of a grill heat. If you start your grill and don't allow it to heat up and just toss your hot dogs right on, you could end up with a tough, dry hot dog that's just been sitting over low heat for too long. The same thing could happen if you let your grill die down too much before adding your hot dogs. The key is striking just the right balance. According to the experts interviewed at Business Insider, the ideal grill temperature for cooking hot dogs is about 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Not sure how to check your grill's temperature? Use the hand test. If you can hold your palm roughly 3 inches above the grill grate and hold it there for 4 seconds before pulling it away, your grill is somewhere between 400 and 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I know what you're thinking, even more rules about hot dogs and heat? Well, it turns out that incorrect heat, whether it's too low or too high, can really ruin your hot dog experience. Additionally, according to today's meat experts, you shouldn't cook your hot dogs over direct heat either. Avoid direct sources of heat and open flames, regardless of whether you're cooking with charcoal or gas. And if you are cooking with charcoal, the experts recommend wait until the coals are completely white before you add any of your food, hot dogs included, to your grill. This will ensure your temperature isn't too high. Charcoal brand Kingsford further recommends that when cooking hot dogs over charcoal, only stack your charcoal on one side of your grill so you can move your hot dogs around the grate if you find that the heat is too low or high in one spot after you start cooking. Okay, this is the last heat-related mistake people commonly make when grilling hot dogs. It's grilling all of their hot dogs on the same heat. Not all hot dogs should be grilled at the same temperature, just like as mentioned before, not all hot dogs can be grilled for the same amount of time due to varying fat content. Grilling expert and condiment creator Julie Boucher told Business Insider that grill masters at home should consider the fat content in the hot dogs to determine the appropriate level of heat to grill them at. Boucher went on to say, higher fat dogs should be cooked at a medium heat, whereas leaner dogs should be grilling on a medium-low setting. Look at your hot dog's fat content before you plop them on the grill. And if you know you specifically bought low-fat hot dogs, like some of the fat-free options on the market, or even turkey or chicken hot dogs, turn down that flame. Once you get your hot dogs on the grill and you're confident that you have the best heat level for your particular hot dogs, you can't just walk away. You have to rotate those dogs. Based on the fat content of your hot dogs, you'll want to rotate them every minute or every few minutes. You'll get a feel for how often you need to rotate by how quickly the hot dog casings develop grill marks. It's better to err on the side of rotating too quickly than it is to err on the side of rotating too slowly. And once you have grill marks all the way around, you're not done. As Good Housekeeping points out, you want to roll those dogs all the way to the coolest side of your grill so that you can use your gas or charcoal heat for the next step in the necessary process for grilling a perfect hot dog. And that next step in the process? Grilling your bun, of course. Why would you put all this effort into lovingly creating a deliciously cooked, ideal hot dog only to put it in a cold, tough, lackluster bun? Regardless of what kind of hot dog buns you buy, you can upgrade them with a little time on the grill. Just use the same heat you were using for your hot dogs, and once the dogs are done, toast up your buns for a minute or two. An NYC hot dog expert told NPR that adding a little bit of butter to the bun ahead of grilling helps too. Mom's grilled cheese sandwich when you were a kid was always kind of made in a frying pan with butter, and was always delicious. Anything with butter on it is great. And if you're just plain bored with your average hot dog bun, Nathan's Famous has a few ideas for you to shake things up a little by adding your grilled dog to a baguette, pretzel bun, or even a tortilla. Oh, you thought once your hot dog was done and your bun was toasted that you were finished creating the perfect hot dog? Not so fast. You're going to want to pay close attention to your condiments, too. While you could go with plain mustard and ketchup, if you really want to take your grilled hot dogs to the next level, you're going to want to get creative with your toppings.
Hey, hot dog guy, can I get 6 hot dogs down here, please?
Right away.
And make it right, please. You know, with the mustard and the ketchup and the relish. And don't make me hit you up for more.
Don't be scared. Your hot dogs are a blank canvas on which you can paint an endless array of gourmet flavors. And if you're not exactly sure where to start, try some of Oscar Mayer's out-of-the-box recommendations, like mango salsa or melted cheese. From diced tomatoes to basil, plum sauce to jalapenos, if you like it, chances are it'll probably taste pretty good on a hot dog.
Looking to impress your friends during your next backyard cookout? Then don't make these mistakes next time you're grilling up some burgers. Each burger type has specific requirements, which means that burgers should be placed in separate zones on the grill so their timing and doneness can be tracked individually. Lean beef burgers will cook differently than chicken or turkey burgers, and veggie or alternate meat patties have their own personalities when it comes to applying the right level of heat. This might sound like a no-brainer for a seasoned griller, but you'd be surprised just how many burgers out there end up raw or charred to a crisp. For your surest path to success, designate zones for each type of burger based on composition and ingredient type. With a gas grill, you should have a few burners that allow a variety of heat levels at once. Create high, medium, and low heat zones to ensure that your patties are exactly to your guests' specifications. Don't forget to use the warming rack if you have one. This lets you keep your finished patties warm without overcooking until you can get them to the table. Forget to put a layer of oil on your patties? You might be in a world of hurt when it's time to serve your burgers. When the composition is 90% lean and the meat meets the heat, the dryness of the patty can create a scorched, puck-like burger that sits on the platter until the party's over. The healthful aspect of eating burgers without a lot of fat is a noble pursuit, but your grill isn't so forgiving with the lack of material to work with. Control the fat content and the odds for successful grilling by brushing a bit of oil on the top and bottom of your lean patties. Using olive oil will let you incorporate a light, nutty layer of flavor that complements the meat, while creating a sheath between the meat and the hot metal without drying things out too much. If you notice a bit of drying mid-cook, you can brush on a little oil to keep things loose and easy. But be cautious. Oil hitting fire can be a real barbecue buzzkill, so go light and make sure it only touches the top of the patty. Be gentle with your flipping to prevent flare-ups. Some people close their grill's lid and hang with guests while the heat builds, thinking they'll come back to perfectly cooked burgers. Not likely. Your luck may hold and your patties could turn out exactly as intended, but more often than not, you'll see smoke rising before you realize you've forgotten something crucial to your burger-busting backyard cookout: the burgers themselves. Now, instead of juicy, succulent burgers, everyone will be eating bun sandwiches filled with iceberg, tomatoes, and disappointment. All you had to do was keep your eyes on the patties while they cooked. Nice going, chef.
Why do you want to eat this stuff anyway?
If you're the designated burger cooker, prepare to be on patrol from start to finish to ensure a proper and appetizing finish for every last patty. Don't press the flipper on the meat, don't flip too often, and don't forget to move them from higher to lower heat as they finish up. Setting a kitchen timer or a countdown on your phone or watch can help you track individual burger types, lest your attention be drawn away temporarily and you lose focus. As long as you get it back quickly, you'll be a smashing patty success. Fresh and frozen patties are obviously different, but it's easy to think tossing everything on the grill at the same time under the same heat will get it all to the finish line simultaneously. Even if the timer dings for both patty types at the same time, you'll end up with different levels of doneness, which may render some of your burgers inedible.
No offense, I ain't trying to park my Bentley next to your Toyota. You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. Oh, you just putting it right next to the frozen pan.
For best results, consult the frozen patty packaging to determine how long and how hot to cook each one. Frozen plant-based and alternative meat patties play by their own rules, so adhere to the instructions if you're not familiar with their game. If your patties are freshly formed and made by hand, keep an extra close watch as you apply heat to make sure you don't give the goods too much fire at first. A meat thermometer is always a must in order to serve up a safe burger when you're dealing with a variety of patty types. Vegetarians and vegans are all too familiar with the challenges that come with preparing food on the grill. Having a tasty selection of non-meat burgers at the ready makes for equal opportunity enjoyment. But the fun comes to a screeching, charbroiled halt when the plant-based patties share the same space on the grill as the meat ones. Not only does it cross-contaminate animal fat with animal-free patties, but they need to be cooked in different ways, as we already mentioned. Plopping them down side by side is a surefire way to ruin the good times. To avoid this flavor of barba confusion, designate a separate section for plant-based items away from meat to keep things clean and tidy. This may require a pre-cleaning to get the gunk from the last cookout off the grate, so give yourself a little time ahead to get your grill in shape. Your herbivore friends will thank you for your thoughtfulness.
Smash burgers have been all the rage lately, and many people now think the best way to make a burger is to press down on it in order to make it cook fast and get a deeper sear. That's not the best course of action, though. Pushing down on burgers, steak, chicken, or any other meat actually has some drawbacks and downright risky possibilities, such as causing grill flare-ups, and it could even potentially lead to a rather tasteless piece of meat. When you press down on a piece of meat, you're forcing out the fats and juices that should be fueling the cooking process. If you press on your burger, you will undoubtedly end up with a dried out, overdone piece of meat, and that's something no one wants for dinner no matter how they like their burger. If you want to properly make smash burgers, you're going to need some sort of flat grill top at the very least. There's nothing like the sound of sizzle when a burger goes on to a super hot grill, but it's about more than just sound. A hotter grill also leads to a better burger.
This is a tasty burger.
For a great grilling experience, you'll want to light the grill correctly and give that grill adequate time to heat up. Let your grill heat up for a while and make sure the temperature is getting extremely high. A good rule of thumb is that you shouldn't be able to hold your hand a few inches above the grill for more than a few seconds. If you're using charcoal, you want them to all be gray before you start cooking. Cooking on a grill that hasn't reached a good temperature can cause great damage, especially if you're using ground beef burger patties. Burger patties tend to stick to the grates of a low-heat grill, causing them to fall apart and dry out. The Maillard reaction, the chemical change that browns meat and creates the all-important crust, only happens at very high temperatures. Basically, unless your grill is hot enough, your beef patties won't sear. They'll just stick to your grill instead. This is probably one of the easier burger grilling mistakes to fix, so turn the heat up and wait just a little bit longer before grilling your next burger. Stop messing with the burgers when they're on the grill, or you're not going to like how the finished product looks or tastes in the end. Experts advise that you just place the burger on the grill and don't touch it. Chef and sommelier Laura Polly says, let it cook for about 3 to 5 minutes depending on size and desired level of doneness, then flip only once to finish cooking, never pressing down on the burger. Your burger will come out much juicier this way, and this also goes for any other meat, including steak, pork chop, or chicken. It's difficult. We tend to want to check on things that are cooking to make sure nothing is going wrong. With burgers, however, patience is the best thing you can have when they're cooking. Just lay back a bit and you'll be the hero of the barbecue. It makes sense that seasoning a burger would be good to add to flavor, but you don't want to go too far too much in advance. The trick to creating that perfect balance of flavor in your burger is to buy high-quality meat and keep things simple with the seasoning. A burger is all about showcasing that big, meaty flavor, so don't skimp on the star. This doesn't mean you can't get crazy with the cheese or sauces and favorite toppings, but just keep the burger seasoning simple. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder should be more than enough to do the trick. There's a lot of reasons to try to stay healthy and eat lean, but while trying to buy a leaner, lower-fat burger, you might also be sacrificing flavor. It's all about balance, and a great grilled burger is not the time to worry about your calorie intake. Hormel contributor and New York-based caterer chef Vanessa Kontov says that 80-20 chuck is best, but any ground meat with a high fat count should more than do the trick for all your burger grilling needs. With that being said, there are definitely healthier burger options out there, including turkey burgers or even veggie burgers. But if you're going to go for a beef burger, go for a real burger, or be prepared for it to just not taste the same. Perhaps instead of going too lean with the burger, consider adding a side of veggies to the meal for balance. Then you don't have to sacrifice flavor. Everyone has seen a burger that is big when raw and looks like it's half the size when cooked. There's a reason for this. Depending on several factors, burgers can often lose about 30% of their volume as the fat melts during cooking. The amount of burger shrinkage depends on several factors, but those factors can include fat content, amount of moisture, and the temperature at which the meat is cooked. Try to keep this in mind when shaping your patty. You're going to want to build them a little bigger so they fit your buns after being cooked. Shaping burgers wide and flat is one of the easiest ways to avoid the hockey puck that we've all seen. Try to remember that you're making burgers, not meatloaf or meatballs. A great burger is going to taste the same from the first bite to the last bite, and that means that you need to keep the fat evenly distributed within the patty. If you're standing there constantly mixing and working the ground meat, you will melt and mash a lot of the fat, and there goes that even distribution. The result could be a pretty dry, drab, tasteless burger. And that's just a sad waste of chewing. Keeping that fat distributed also helps the burger to cook more evenly. Overworking can make your patties completely uneven, leaving you with a burger that's thick in some areas, thin in others, and too rare in spots but too well done in other spots, leading to a rather disappointing taste experience overall. People often take the burger straight from fridge to grill, but that's not the best way to go when making burgers. The sudden shift from cold to hot can cause the meat to seize up, leaving a lot to desire from your burger's texture. Cooking straight from the fridge to the grill also produces uneven cooking. This could mean a burger that is charred outside and raw inside. It can be tough to plan ahead, but many chefs recommend letting your meat sit to come to room temperature before grilling. This will allow you to get an evenly cooked final product with the perfect texture you're craving. You don't want to overcook those burgers and turn them into hockey pucks, but you also don't want a bloody mess if someone was hoping for a medium to medium well burger. It's important to use the proper cooking time, but first you have to know what the proper cooking time is. Grilling burgers should be considered to be much like grilling a ribeye steak. None of this smash burger stuff for the grill just to get the sear as quickly as possible. It's about putting in the time and patience. James Zamory, a chef at Carnal in Bellingham, Washington, says that cooking your patty slowly and allowing it to rest on the cool side of the grill is your best bet. People assume burgers are normally hot and fast, but the properly grilled burger should take about 30 minutes from start to finish. So save the smashed patties for the flat top.
Yeah, just another beautiful day in paradise.
Another common mistake people make with burgers is taking the burger directly from the grill onto the bun. We get it, you're hungry and it looks delicious, but that burger is not yet ready to be enjoyed. Like any grilled meat, burgers need to rest before they are served. This allows the juices to redistribute and helps make for a more balanced flavor that won't make as much of a mess when you bite into it. When you go directly from grill to bun and eat right away, you're allowing those juices to escape before they've redistributed throughout the meat. So let that burger rest. The taste will be well worth those extra few minutes of waiting. A recent survey found that nearly 75% of burger lovers top their burgers with cheese, and other toppings were also in the mix, ranging from pickles and lettuce to ketchup, tomatoes, onions, and mustard. Burgers are fun to build, and everyone has a personal mix of their favorite blend of toppings and fixings, but you don't want to go so far with toppings that you can't taste the burger.
One burger with four slices.
Sorry, we can't do that.
Just put 4 slices of cheese on a burger.
Mike Puma, founder of Gotham Burger Social Club, says that 2 toppings and a sauce should be the limit. You want to have a burger that is pretty, of course, but it's not like it'll even be easy to eat if you can't bite into it. Aim for a burger that will fit in your mouth and one that doesn't have so many toppings that you forget there's a burger inside there. All the extra toppings can overwhelm the meat, and isn't the meat the point of enjoying a burger?
It feels like it's never a bad idea to fire up the grill and cook up a heaping helping of corn on the cob, as long as you do it right, anyway. We've put together some of the top mistakes you could be making when grilling yours. Quite a few grilled corn on the cob recipes will advise you to soak or even parboil your corn on the cob before the vegetable hits the grate on your grill. Some say that this helps to keep your corn from burning or drying out too quickly. But is that true? Epicurious took on various corn on the cob grilling methods in its test kitchen and found that most of the time, soaking and boiling does little to help you achieve that perfect grilled ear of corn. When it came to soaking the ear of corn before grilling, the testers found that soaking an unhusked ear for even as long as 10 minutes didn't really do anything to help prevent burning or charring. So if you're grilling your corn unhusked and uncleaned, why bother? To achieve that smoky grilled flavor, you can just skip the soak, save your time, and plop those ears right on the grill grate. As for boiling, the testers tried both blanching ears of corn in a mixture of milk and water, as well as boiling the ears in plain, unadulterated water. The result? Corn that tasted like, well, boiled corn. Even after some time on the grill, that bland flavor profile remained. So put that stock pot away, at least at this point in the process. Instead, skip the soaking and pre-boiling and just grill your corn. It'll save you both time and disappointment. Many grilled corn on the cob recipes will tell you to completely shuck and clean your corn before grilling. Or you may encounter other tips that say to leave the husk completely on when you throw the cobs on the grill. But it turns out the best method may be somewhere in the middle. The Epicurious Test Kitchen found that removing all of the husk and silks led to overcharring and easy burning, making for some seriously nasty flavors. Meanwhile, leaving the husk and silks completely on led to a lackluster flavor, as that smoky grill goodness couldn't really reach the corn kernels. The best option for perfectly flavored grilled corn was to pull back the husks on each cob, remove all the silks, push the husk back in place, and then grill away. This allowed for just enough protection from the grill heat to keep the corn kernels themselves safe. At the same time, it allowed for enough exposure to imbue each kernel with that delicious grilled flavor profile.
Take a couple of the husks off, some of the outside husks, and then you leave the rest on to protect it.
Imagine this scene. You sit down to your dinner, grab a fresh grilled ear of corn, slather on some butter, and watch it melt down onto your plate. You take a bite, expecting some late summer or early autumn glory, but then you're immediately greeted by a mouthful of hair-like corn silk. You spend the rest of the meal picking the bits out of your teeth. Who wants that? If you intend to partially remove the husk before grilling, then you'll want to be extra careful when removing all of those corn silk fibers. The kitchen found that the easiest way to remove the silks is by cooking the corn with them on, either in boiling water or in the microwave, then removing them before eating.
We don't want to eat that.
If you're grilling your corn, though, this isn't exactly an option. So go with the next best method by using some rubber gloves. Use a latex-free glove, the kind you can purchase in a pharmacy or big box store, to rub all up and down each ear of corn. The friction of the rubbery glove material will remove the silks with ease. Dinner plans can be tough to pull off. We're all busy people, so it can often seem pretty sensible to get some ingredients days in advance and store them in the fridge or freezer until you're ready to use them. Unfortunately, that's not what you want to do if you plan to grill some corn. Bon Appetit recommends that you enjoy your corn the same day that you bought it. Otherwise, you risk that corn decreasing in quality and sweetness the longer you allow it to sit in the cold, dry environment of your refrigerator. If you absolutely must store your corn for a few days before finally chowing down, be sure to keep the husks intact and store the corn in your fridge's produce drawer. To further protect those fresh kernels, Epicurious recommends plopping the ears into a tightly wrapped plastic bag. Whichever method you plan to use when grilling your corn, there's one area where you won't want to deviate from our advice: picking out the best, freshest corn possible. According to All Recipes, fresh corn is typically in season between May and September. What's more, you'd ideally be eating your corn within 8 hours of it coming from the field. Of course, in the real world, this isn't very realistic unless you happen to own or live next to a cornfield. So if you're shopping around your local grocery store for some corn on the cob, there are a few things to look for. Firstly, look for ears of corn that have a bit of oomph to them. That means they should feel a little weighty when you pick them up. The silks at the top should be fresh and green, not dry and yellow. The husks should feel tight, too. And while you may feel the temptation to pull back those husks to get a glimpse of the kernels, restrain yourself. Instead, squeeze the outside of the husk around the end of the corn to check for plumpness. An accomplished home cook or professional chef will tell you that a fantastic dish starts with patience and careful attention to detail. You can't just rush through a recipe and expect greatness. The same holds true for grilling your corn on the cob. When Mashed interviewed Publix corporate chef Tom Donnelly on grilling corn on the cob, he advised home cooks not to rush their corn. Instead, you should handle each step of the process with attention and care, all in the name of a better end product. In other words, this means thinking carefully about each choice you make. For instance, if you go with shucked corn straight on the grill grate, you'll have to cook your corn at a lower temperature to avoid burning, if you do indeed want to avoid a lot of char. If you go with corn cooked fully in the husk and its silks, you'll want to plan for properly removing that corn silk after the cooking process. Without that careful attention to detail, it's all too easy to overcook your grilled corn on the cob. And we're not just talking about overcooked to the point that your corn kernels are visibly blackened and charred. The sad truth is that corn can be entirely overcooked and not even show it, making that strict attention to your cooking process all the more necessary. According to Betty Fussell, who spoke to the Chicago Tribune about all things corn, some varieties of sweet corn can actually be eaten raw. This means that there's no need to worry about cooking your corn into oblivion. Plus, the longer you cook your corn, the more the sugars inside the kernels will break down, and the less sweet it will be when you eat it. Heat quickens the process of sugar converting into starch, so more time on the grill results in less of that flavorful sugar. Fussell says that usually you just need to cook your corn until it's warmed through. Or in the case of grilling, that would be until you reach your desired level, if any, of char. As you could likely guess, you also don't want to cook your corn at too high a heat. Not only does it increase the chances of overcooking the corn and breaking down the sugars within the kernels, but it can quickly lead to an ear of corn that's just not as tasty. The Spruce Eats advises cooking your corn on the cob over indirect heat, as opposed to a full flame. You can even potentially cook your corn on your grill's warming rack. Remember, you really only need to warm the corn through, not necessarily cook it until it looks crispy and black. So a relatively gentle process may be all that you want or need. If you cook your corn over indirect heat on a grill, the process should only take about 10 minutes for shucked corn on a medium heat grill. If you're simply warming your corn through on your grill's warming rack, you can typically double the amount of time. And if you're cooking your corn in the husk, you'll likely want to skip the warming rack, but should still go for about a 20-minute cook time and watch carefully to make sure that there isn't a ton of direct flames striking the corn cobs. If you don't leave your corn on the grill for very long in the interest of preserving the flavor, how is it going to get all smoky and delicious? Isn't that the whole point of grilling corn on the cob? Good question. If you're willing to sacrifice some of your corn's sweetness, you can go ahead and leave it on the grill longer, allowing more smoke to infuse itself into the kernels. However, there's another way. If you want the best of both worlds, you can cheat your way to smokiness with a spice rub. To achieve that trick, Cooking Light recommends using a mixture of salt, chili powder, paprika, paprika, cumin, and pepper. Blend those spices with some butter and slather it on each ear of corn before they hit the grill. Those spices will help you achieve a smoked flavor profile. You can either add the butter mixture to your half-shucked corn before folding the husks back, sealing the butter inside, or you can cook the butter-coated corn straight on your grill grate. You can also wrap the buttered-up corn in aluminum foil if you want to keep them totally free of the flames. Sure, we know that this is all about the biggest mistakes to avoid when cooking your corn on the cob on the grill, but one of the mistakes you could be making is simply sticking to the grill for the rest of your corn cooking life. For instance, if you love the smoky flavor of grilled corn on the cob, why not try smoking your corn too? According to the Washington Post, when it's compared to grilled corn, smoked corn has a more multi-dimensional flavor. It also tends to hit the plate with plumper, juicier kernels. Because the smoking adds flavor, as does the caramelization that occurs during cooking, there's no need to further season your corn on the cob either. A little butter or olive oil and perhaps a few pinches of salt or pepper added at the table is all you need. You can smoke your corn using either a smoker or a grill outfitted with a smoker box and some hardwood chips. If you've avoided all of these mistakes, then you may well have prepared a heaping bounty of delicious, perfectly cooked corn on the cob. You're really close, but there's one thing left to do. While flavorings like butter, salt, and a bit of pepper are all well and good for topping off your corn on the cob, why stop there? Why not get a little creative with your toppings? You might just find a new favorite combo that takes your grilled corn to the next level. We have a few suggestions for you that will really pump up that grilled corn experience. You might roll your ears of corn in lime juice, olive oil, chili powder, cumin, paprika, and sea salt for a little Mexican-style chili lime flair, or you might lean into Italian flavorings with some parsley, red pepper flakes, garlic, and Parmesan cheese for a savory, umami-rich experience.
Many people like to grill pork chops, but a few common pitfalls might mean you end up with sad, dry chops. But that's no reason to give up. Here's how to avoid common grilled pork chop mistakes. That rosy, bone-in, mouth-watering pork chop might be appealing to the eye, but it is actually not the best cut for the grill. Cooking instructor Viola Buttoni told Mashed, "The light pink color betrays very lean muscle meat. But what about that lovely bit of fat at the top of the cut? Won't that save things? Not really." Turns out that fat cap all around will melt away and not into the muscle tissue. Buttoni went on to add, "Unless you really like the sweet charred fat, leave those chops for pan frying and look for darker cuts. Darker pork meat points to the presence of interstitial fat that will trickle and remain in the muscle tissue when it melts." There's always the question with any meat whether a dry or wet rub is best when grilling. Will a certain rub properly hydrate or season the meat, or will it just leak out or even cause the meat to stick to the grill? In the case of pork, it's absolutely best to lean toward dry. Pavlik Patel, chef at the Institute of Culinary Education, told Mashed, "Pork that comes out of a package and seasoned releases moisture that prevents the meat from searing and getting golden brown grill marks. However, it's important that the pork is seasoned. We don't want to miss out on flavor after all, so you don't want to skip this step." What then is the best course of action to achieve grilled pork chop greatness? Patel suggests that you do a dry brine by sprinkling the pork chop with salt and letting the meat rest for an hour. Then she says, "Dab off the excess moisture with a paper towel and season lightly with salt again and pepper right before grilling. At that point, your meat is ready for the grill and to get that beautiful crisp sear we all crave." One big mistake when grilling pork is trimming off all of the fat on the pork chops. Assuming that you love flavor, you should definitely keep some of the fat on your meat. Remember that this fat lends some seriously delicious flavor, assuming you've already followed instructor Viola Buttoni's advice and gotten a dark piece of pork chop with more fat in it. So while you should trim away the excess fat, be careful not to take away all of it, at least not if you want that meat to have flavor and taste. And seriously, who doesn't want that? My Mustard Sommelier, Chef Brandon Collins, told Mashed, "This is also a reason to cook your chop on an indirect fire, so the fat does not drip onto the flame and carbonize before floating back up onto the meat. Pork chops naturally have a small amount of intermuscular fat," says Collins, "so leaving the cap on really helps from a flavor standpoint and is well worth it. It will also lead to a way more flavorful pork chop at the end, and that means a tastier dinner."
Hi, Alice. What's for dinner?
Pork chops.
Pork chops. What else?
Waiting to season until after you've finished grilling a pork chop could be a mistake that leads to a sad, tasteless piece of meat. In reality, pork chops should be seasoned with salt before grilling, at least an hour before, according to Patel. Many home cooks are still conditioned by the childhood kitchen adage that meat shouldn't be salted before cooking, as the old story maintains that salt will extract the meat's juices and make for tough, chewy bites. Salt does indeed draw out moisture, which is why it's often used as a preservative, like for some cured meats. But the quantity of salt you'll use here, plus the relatively short time the meat will sit with the salt on it, makes a big difference. Viola Buitoni told Mashed, "That moisture coming from the pork chops melts the surface salt and helps it trickle back into the tissue. Not only are proteins broken down, but the flavor will be deeper and longer lasting. So salt well in advance and be prepared." Buitoni went on to add, "Indeed, if I plan to grill pork chops, I salt everything the evening before and leave it loosely covered on the bottom shelf of the refrigerator. I have come to think of it as a dry brine." Given that you've now gotten this advice from 2 professional chefs, you know it's serious. Pre-salting that pork chop makes a big difference. Pork chops, like most other meat, benefit from getting close to room temperature before hitting the grill. So while it may seem easier to throw the meat in the fridge than simply grab it when the grill gets started, that's just not a good way to go. Plainly put, if you start with a very cold piece of meat, it will take longer to heat. This creates the potential for overcooking those pork chops. Buitoni also said that you should let your meat come to room temperature before putting it on the grill. It will help in your goal to grill your pork chops just the bare time needed to reach the right internal temperature. And remember, you don't want to grill wet pork chops. Buitoni told Mashed, "Pat them dry before resting them on the grill, as surface moisture is another element to lengthen cooking." When grilling pork chops, quite a few people cut into the pork to tell how cooked it is. Yet that can be a pretty significant mistake, especially if you're making a large cut that exposes a lot of the interior of the pork chop. As Jessica Randhawa, the head chef, recipe creator, photographer, and writer behind The Forked Spoon, told Mashed, cutting into meat allows moisture loss, resulting in dry meat. Also, trying to estimate whether or not a chop is fully cooked just by using your eyes is often inaccurate. This attempt could lead to undercooked meat and even potential foodborne illness. So don't just trust your eyes. Use a meat thermometer. Randhawa added, "Using a digital thermometer is easily the most accurate way to know how well pork is cooked scientifically. The USDA recommends using a thermometer to check the internal temperature of pork to be at least 145 degrees Fahrenheit, and the pork should be allowed to rest for at least 3 minutes." Randhawa told Mashed, "I always have a digital thermometer handy for all my cooking, especially meats, to ensure that the internal temperature is perfect for the recipe I am making." Another way to prevent your pork from becoming dry and tasteless, even if you feel the need to cook it all the way through, is by brining it in a salt solution beforehand. Making a brine is quite simple. Dylan Benoit, chef and owner of Carnivore Premium Meats and Prime Kitchen, told Mashed, "For every liter of water, add 1/4 cup kosher salt and 1/8 cup brown sugar and whatever aromatics you desire, and bring to a boil." Benoit went on to add, "Remove from the heat and allow to cool fully before submerging your pork chops in the brine for 4 to 24 hours, depending on thickness. Remove from brine, rinse in fresh water, and pat dry before cooking." At Benoit's butcher shop, they brine their pork chops for 48 hours and then cold smoke them for 2 hours, creating what they like to call bacon chops. Benoit said, "Essentially, it's bacon on the bone that cooks like a regular pork chop and is moist, smoky, and perfectly seasoned." And yes, you really should add sugar to the brine, which helps with browning and contributes to the flavor.
Pork chop!
No one likes a dried out, tough pork chop, but it's easy to overcook by accident. Luckily, there's a bit of hope, at least if you're planning to play by the rules. Chef Palak Patel told Mashed, "In 2011, the USDA changed the recommended cooking temperature of pork to 145 degrees Fahrenheit with a 3-minute rest. That's a 15-degree Fahrenheit drop from the old 160-degree Fahrenheit cook temperature." Chef Patel went on to add, "Just remember, resting can enable a pork chop to continue cooking. Be sure to remove the pork chop from the grill just before the internal temperature reaches 145 degrees Fahrenheit. To keep moisture from escaping, try getting a quick hot sear on each side and then finishing the pork chop on the cooler side of the grill. Once you realize that all pork chops cook the same and only their thickness determines the cooking time, you'll become a pork chop master." As with many other cuts of meat, you should always let your precious pork chop rest for a while after cooking. This is a pretty important rule to remember, as this allows the contracted meat to relax and to stop pushing out all of the juices. So let it rest and don't touch it, and absolutely don't break off a bite to taste. Leave it alone, seriously. Chef Brandon Collins told Mashed. Letting your pork chops rest after grilling ensures that the proteins have time to relax. So when you cut into the chop, the juices won't escape. Chef Patel had this to add. Resting pork after grilling is a must. When the pork is removed from the grill, cover with foil and leave for 10 minutes to allow for carryover cooking. Resting allows the meat to evenly distribute the juices and helps to keep the pork moist. Grilling a steak is an art form to some, but there are several common ways to ruin a masterpiece. From not pat drying to over flipping and not getting the grill hot enough, here are the most common mistakes cooks make when grilling steak. Not all steaks are created equal, and choosing the right cut of meat will make a big difference when tossing it onto the grill. The first mistake people make with meat is buying poor quality cuts. Frederick Dallaire, executive chef at Lowe's Miami Beach Hotel, said, "Meat is like electronics. Buy cheap and you will be very disappointed. Buy the best meat you can, grass-fed, organic, choice meat or better, not select. Buy a thick cut of steak. Thin cuts overcook easily, but a thick one will be more forgiving." Joy Beber, executive chef and co-owner of Joy Cafe in Atlanta, agrees. She says, "A thick cut allows for control and for the fire to infuse more flavor. It also gives a little room for error. Once you choose that steak, be forgiving with the fat too. Fat is not a bad thing. People often trim all the fat off of meat thinking it's bad for them. According to Dallaire, that's where the flavor is. He says to leave some fat. That way it will melt during cooking and give great flavor to the meat." Now that you have your perfect steak, it's time to cook. When it comes to mistakes when grilling meat, it's first things first, and not having a clean grill is often mistake number one. This may seem obvious, but it's an easy one to miss. Olivier Senyusawi, executive chef at the Lowe's Atlanta Hotel, is very specific when he says, "You must have a clean grill and clean it as you go. This will help create a proper sear and prevent burning." But honestly, why wouldn't you want a clean grill before getting started? Beyond the obvious reasons, it's also a way to avoid stale flavors from another dinner carrying over. Once you have a clean grill, you need to think about the right use of a heat source. Using fuel to start your grill when cooking with charcoal is another mistake. Senyusawi says, "Burning fuel to start the grill can make meat taste funny. Use a chimney starter to light charcoal, which is available at any hardware store. And then respect that grill by using the right tools on it. Using a fork to turn meat on the grill is a crime. When you pierce a piece of meat, all of the flavor will be released. Instead, flip your meat by using tongs."
I'll get the tongs.
Oftentimes, people are looking for those classic grill marks, or diamonds as some people call them, but then they don't allow the grill to get hot enough and then move the meat too often. Girl Carnivore's Keita Roberts had this to say, "It's a classic mistake, and the signature grill marks don't set in and you end up letting too much heat out while trying to manipulate the steak. To master those grill marks, you must make sure the grill is hot enough. Instead of placing the steaks right on the grill, allow it to come to temperature for 15 to 20 minutes beforehand. The grill needs to be holding heat, and the grate needs to be hot enough to sear the meat initially, creating the classic crosshatch." Roberts says, "Once the steak hits the searing hot grates, close the lid and ignore it for 1 minute. Rotate 45 degrees and then wait another minute before flipping the steak. The thicker the steak, the longer the cooking time, but on average, for a 1-inch steak, that 1-minute trick is perfect to nail the signature grill mark we all want when not cooking in cast iron but over a grill. This trick works whether you are cooking directly over the coals or doing a reverse sear." Grilling is associated with summer, and summer means fresh flavors. What better way to appreciate that than to use herbs from your garden? Michael Ollier, the senior corporate chef for the certified Angus beef brand, agrees. He said, "Summer is the season for fresh herbs and spices. Build flavors to enhance the overall taste and presentation of your steak with what you already have. One idea is to build a brush with herbs from around your house. Add some oil and baste the grates on your grill with the mixture for added flavor. Olier suggests to dip into a bowl of your favorite oil and brush directly onto the grates. The heat will awaken the herbs and bring out their aromas. Another idea is to rest your grilled steaks on top of your favorite chopped herbs and olive oil to automatically create a board dressing. That way, the heat from the steak will activate the flavors from the herbs. This will infuse the fresh taste with the robust beef flavor. One of the biggest mistakes people make when grilling a steak is cutting into it to see if it's done while it's still cooking. It's understandable why it may seem like a helpful thing to do, but it's a disaster for that meat. Jessica Randhawa, head chef and creator of the Forked Spoon, says, "Cooking meat to a safe temperature is not only critical in the food safety for your family and friends, but it is also easy with cheap, modern technology. We have the technology to help us be better cooks, and the digital meat thermometer is probably my #1 must-have for the kitchen." Steak, along with poultry, fish, and pork, can now be cooked to perfection without having to guess and cut into the meat, which causes the loss of both moisture and nutrients. Most readily available meat thermometers can be purchased for $10, and some even have the temperatures for the various meats printed right on the thermometer. Nothing kills a steak more than not giving it a few minutes to rest. If you cut your steak right away, you'll let all of the flavorful juices run out. Letting the steak rest allows the juices to reabsorb into the meat, creating tender, juicy bites. You shouldn't need more than 10 minutes. If you have foil on hand, it's best to create a tent around your steak to keep the heat in while it rests. Once it's rested, slice it up and dig in. Leaving your steak be will also allow the juices to thicken slightly as they cool, so when you go to slice your steak, you don't have the juices spilling out everywhere. The secret to a good steak is controlling the moisture. Too much moisture will result in a gray, sad-looking steak instead. If you want your steak to get a nice sear on the grill, pat drying it is crucial, and it's as easy as the name implies. Just take some paper towels and use them to firmly pat the meat on both sides before seasoning and searing. You want all the flavor you can get, but you want that without drawing out the meat's moisture. Pat drying is a great way to get that meat to have a beautiful sear and a gorgeous crust. Don't skip this important step. Remember, people eat with their eyes first, so presentation is everything. Once you have your coals and the grill searing hot, go ahead and throw it on and just let it be for a bit. An interesting mistake people make is that they flip their steak constantly, fearing it will char and overcook. You don't have to do all that to prevent overcooking. Instead, leave the steak face down for about 4 minutes and let a crust build before you flip to the other side. When you flip, you're finishing the steak and waiting for it to reach your desired internal temperature. Leonard Botello, pitmaster and owner of Truth Barbecue in Texas, says, "I prefer medium rare, so I will usually pull around 125 to 130 degrees internally. At the end of the cook, right about 5 degrees lower than my pull temp, I like to flip the steak every minute until it reaches 125. You must still be careful though, because the temperature will spike and you can easily overcook or burn your meat. And cutting right after is also not a good idea," Botello says. Once you have pulled at your desired temperature, let the steak rest for a minimum of 10 minutes. If you cut into it too soon, all the rendered fats will pour out of the steak, and the steak will oxidize or dry out very fast. The rest ensures the fats soak back into the steak, giving you a very juicy bite.
The Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious.
Seasoning at the right time and in the right way makes or breaks the steak. And that's all about salt and fat. Salt the steak right before grilling. Devin Cameron, chef and owner of Braised and Deglazed, has said that if you pre-season the steak, it will dry out and the taste will change to more of a cured meat taste. And remember that if you add the pepper before you grill, you will burn the seasoning. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Some steak diners prefer the flavor over sprinkling pepper on after the fact. Another mistake with seasoning is not adding enough butter. Cameron says, "I like to brush the steak after every turn with a mixture of butter and vinegar. Mix 1 tablespoon of butter with 1 tablespoon red wine vinegar in a small pan and brush this on the steak as it cooks. Don't forget the acid along with the salt and fat. Most grillers know that salt is important, but they might not realize that acid is almost just as important. Joy Babert prefers to go with the traditional Tuscany way of serving steak, which includes a nice drizzle of olive oil, a squeeze of lemon juice, and all of the accumulated juices from the resting plate.
Seafood is more delicate than other ingredients going on the grill, and that means keeping some special considerations in mind. While it's not rocket science to properly grill seafood, try to avoid these common mistakes so you can grill all seafood to absolute perfection. There's nothing like fresh caught fish from the ocean, and while that's not really an option in day-to-day prepping for dinner, you also don't want to be eating fish that's been sitting around for too long. It's really just about getting the freshest ingredients. In an ideal world, that branzino should still be moving. Chef Andrea Belfiore, founder of Italia Like Locals, explained that he is obsessed with eating only fish that was just caught.
Happy now.
Whenever you want to grill a swordfish steak or scallops, make sure they smell like the ocean when you buy them. Fish tastes the best when it's fresh, but it's also at its healthiest when fresh. So always be sure to ask the fish counter at your grocery store what is fresh that day, and let that guide your dinner menu plans. Eating and enjoying a great piece of fish is about keeping things simple. Chef Andrea Belfiore explained, "When I think of grilling, I think of primitive cooking. You can't cover the flavor of that tasty, fresh, and expensive fish you just bought. Keep the vibe Mediterranean by grilling without seasoning." Belfiore continued, "Once cooked, lightly salt the fish and then cover it with a super tasty condiment made with chopped capers, green olives, parsley, garlic, lemon zest, lemon juice, and extra virgin olive oil. You'll thank us for this one. This works great for swordfish, tuna, red snapper, calamari, octopus, salmon, sea bass, and more. Avoid over-seasoning. Seafood is really delicate when it comes to flavor. Too much seasoning, spice, or sauce can be overpowering." Cooking on dirty grates is a very common mistake. My mustard sommelier and chef Brandon Collins said, "It's important to make sure that your grates are as clean as possible before placing the seafood on the grill. This will help prevent your food sticking and help prevent carbonized items, the black specks from burnt leftover food you'll see on dirty grates, from sticking to your food," according to Collins. To clean, Collins has his own method of choice. He explained, "I usually bring my grill up to temp and then scrape the grates down as well as I can, and then finally rub with a towel. If you're keeping your grill below the smoking point of your oil, then Collins says to apply oil to the grates as well with a towel. He said, "If I'm going to keep the grates above the smoking point, then I do not apply oil as it will just carbonize and burn off." While it may seem easier to grab the fish or shellfish from the freezer and throw it on the grill, that's not the best idea. Proper thawing is critical to preparing high-quality seafood, no matter how you cook it. Ben Conniff, co-founder of Luke's Lobster, said, "When seafood is frozen, the water inside it is bound up in ice crystals. If you thaw the seafood slowly in the refrigerator, it not only keeps it safe to eat, it also lets the seafood slowly reabsorb the moisture, as those ice crystals melt, so its flavor and texture resembles a fresh product." Conniff adds that the best practice is to plan to move your seafood from the freezer to the fridge at least 24 hours ahead of starting up your grill. Your fish should be charred and crispy on the outside, while the inside stays nice and tender. By overcooking the fish, you'll lose its tenderness and flavor, and your guests will essentially be eating a shoe sole. Andrea Belfiore explained, "Use a high temperature for a short time. Sometimes you'll only need to cook the fish on one side, depending on how thick the cut is. You shouldn't flip the fish more than once, just like a steak." One of the biggest mistakes people make when grilling seafood is overcooking it. Laura Polly, a chef and sommelier at San Francisco-based Cucina Testarossa, said, "I've lost count of the thousands of overcooked, rubbery shrimp I've been served. Seafood has a very high water content, so it will continue cooking once you take it off the heat. The key is to take the fish off just before it's done, and after a few minutes, it will be perfectly cooked." Many people love a delicious platter of fresh-made sushi, but not all fish is sushi-grade fish. And if you aren't eating sushi, you want to make sure that the fish is properly cooked. But what do you do if you're not sure your fish is cooked thoroughly?
You put too much charcoal on too soon. This is the first time I prepared a barbecue.
I build a wood fire. It takes longer, but the quality is so much better.
Rima Kleiner of Dish on Fish has this to say about it. The safest way to make sure it's cooked through is to use a food thermometer to ensure it reaches an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit. Another way of checking on the doneness of the fish is to cut into the fish and take a look at the inside. Kleiner adds, cooked fish should be opaque and flake easily with a fork. If it's undercooked, put it back on the grill until it's thoroughly cooked. Better safe than sorry. It may seem like the skin of a piece of fish is unnecessary excess when preparing to cook and eat that fish. But do not remove the skin. The skin is delicious, and you are going to want to enjoy every last bite of it. Chef Belfiore said, pat dry your fish, place it uncovered, skin side up in the fridge at least 30 minutes before cooking it. Patting the fish will allow the skin to get dry, which will ultimately help the skin to crisp up. Belfiore added, make a couple of cuts through the skin before cooking. Season the skin with some salt and pepper, and then place the fish on the grill skin side down first. Be sure to make that skin crispy, like bacon. And get ready, it's going to be super tasty. Cooks are often tempted to check their fish or flip it, and this can cause it to stick to the grill or fall apart. Chef Joey Maggiore, owner of the Maggiore Group, said, the biggest problem people make is that they move the fish around too much. The less you touch the fish, the better it is when you are grilling it. Let it finish cooking before touching it. You can also lightly rub olive oil on the grill before you put the fish down when you're sautéing it to help prevent the sticking, added Maggiore. Similar to crafting the perfect burger, stick to one flip on each side. You should also know what's the right fish to throw on the grill. If the fish is super flaky or a delicate fish, it should not be grilled. Maggiore agrees. He said, stick to fishes like salmon and swordfish that can withstand the heat of the grill and heat through to perfection. If your fish falls apart, you may need to make lemons out of lemonade. Maggiore added, the best course of action is to throw it on a salad or hope it's Taco Tuesday and break it up for some fish tacos with cabbage and pickled cucumbers. No one wants to end up accidentally swallowing a bone while eating a piece of fish. This is more than unappetizing. It can also be dangerous and lead to choking.
Choking! Oh, God!
Do something! Oh, God! Oh, Alex!
Come on!
But mistakes happen, and some bones do sometimes end up in your fish when it gets on your plate. But no worries. Rima Kleiner said, keep a pair of needle-nosed pliers in your kitchen, reserved for raw food only, and use them to remove visible bones. If you forgot to debone before cooking, just pull slightly. They should come out easily. Now that fish will be bone-free and safe to eat. And don't forget to wash those pliers well between uses so they don't smell like fish. One of the biggest mistakes people make when grilling seafood is not giving a wood plank a try. It's a small action that can make a world of difference in the taste and flavor of the final result. Sean Hill, grill master for the Grilling Dad, said, putting your fish on a wood plank keeps the bottom part of the fish away from direct heat. Not doing so can lead to a burnt bottom and an uncooked top part of the fish. Use a wood plank to get evenly grilled fish and enjoy the nice flavor infusion it also brings. Grilling that fish directly on the plank adds smoky and earthy flavors from the timber, according to culinary scientist Jessica Gavin. That means all those flavors of the wood go into your fish and give it a whole other layer of flavor to enjoy. Another great asset to use when you're grilling seafood is a skewer. When grilling shrimp, a common mistake cooks make is not trying to enjoy that shrimp by cooking it on a skewer. Chef Eric Pedersen of Evo Italian said, if you try to grill them without a skewer, they can fall through the grates of the grill when you turn them. Safeness matters here in a big way though, so don't skip the step of soaking the skewers before using. It's important. Pedersen added, make sure your wood skewers are soaked in water for at least 30 minutes before using them. This is to make sure they are super wet and so they won't catch on fire while you are cooking. They are wood on an open flame after all, and you don't want your dinner to, catch fire. Grilling chicken wings just right requires careful planning from start to finish. Trust us, there are lots of grilling pitfalls that can ruin chicken wings. But while these mistakes are easy to make when grilling wings, with just a little effort, they are also easy to avoid. Instead of oiling the grill to keep your chicken wings from sticking to it, what you actually want to do is oil the wings. Not a ton of oil, mind you, because the wings already have plenty of fat in them, and adding too much oil could prevent them from crisping up. But a thin layer of oil will do the trick, and even help the food cook more evenly. The main reason not to oil the grill is that the oil will reach its smoking point faster than if you oil the food itself, which means you'll end up with more potentially cancer-causing char. Having a thin layer of high-heat oil on the grill is fine if you're not going to be using high heat, but wings are probably going to need high heat, so you're better off just cleaning your grill and leaving it clean before you throw on the meat.
Experts recommend, however, oiling your grill if you don't know if there's oil on your food already. The only other reason to oil the grill and not the food is if your wings are pre-seasoned and you don't want to mess up the seasonings on the skin. What you don't want to do when grilling is create excess char. None of us need cancer, but we all know that the best parts of a juicy chicken wing are the crispy outer bits. That means making sure the temperature isn't too high, but is high enough to create that crunchy, gently blackened outside and tender inside. Because the worst thing would be to end up with burnt wings. You especially don't want excess char with chicken wings because they're already so fatty that when that fat drips, it'll create extra polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are also carcinogenic. So the trick is to find the balance between high enough heat for crispy skin, but low enough so the wing cooks all the way through and there's ideally less cancer in your future. Most barbecue gurus will tell you that you want your meat dry before putting it on the grill. But what about marinated chicken wings? It probably won't make the biggest difference if your meat is damp if you're using fairly high heat, but to avoid disappointment, the easiest solution is to use a dry rub or a dry brine instead. Even if marinating meat doesn't negatively affect the exterior of the wings, it can make it mushy. It also doesn't infuse the meat as much as a rub applied far enough in advance. Since marinades are often oil-based and meat has a lot of water in it, the marinade has a hard time getting deep inside it. That's not the end of the world for chicken wings, which aren't that big, but you don't really need to be adding a ton of excess oil to your fatty wings anyway. A lot of it will just drip out through the grill grates, which is a waste of your marinating efforts. So if you really love teriyaki sauce, it's best to add it partway through cooking instead. Or if your marinade is incredibly liquidy, you might just have to be okay with less crispy wings. Definitely avoid marinades with a lot of sugar though, or they'll burn quickly under direct heat. Salting meat in advance is how you infuse flavor. You don't want to oversalt, especially if you're going to be adding sauce or dipping the wings in something salty. But if you're a wing purist, toss in some seasonings and then throw your chicken wings back in the fridge until you're ready to grill them. You can do the same with a dry rub, which is a blend of spices sprinkled on meat. If you actually rub it, you can end up with more spice on your hands than the meat, but go for it. These rubs could range from paprika and black pepper to curry blends or cayenne-based hot wing rubs. You know how this one goes. You walk away from whatever you're cooking without setting a timer, and 20 minutes later, your wings are burnt. So whatever recipe you're making, whether it's your own or someone else's, get a timer going, preferably a loud one. It's a little bit of effort for a big reward. And if that doesn't convince you, think about the flip side. If you don't do it and you end up burning your chicken wings, you're wasting time and money. Most ovens have timers, but so does your phone. There's no need to buy a little egg timer or, say, a cute Mozart timer for your kitchen. If your wings are soggy or burnt, barbecue sauce isn't going to save you. It's not going to swing in like Falcon or Captain America and make everything okay. If you overcook your chicken or ended up with mushy skin, you're on your own, which might even mean your wings aren't worth eating. That also goes for hot sauce, teriyaki sauce, ketchup, honey mustard sauce, ranch, or whatever else you think might be a good idea when you're in a chicken wing-related pickle. Needless to say, don't mess up those wings in the first place, and you won't feel like you need to cover up a problem that can't be fixed. The safe internal temperature for cooked chicken wings is 165 Fahrenheit, according to the USDA. So the best plan is to get your meat to the tiniest bit below that, because unless you live in an ice house, they're going to keep cooking inside after you take them off the grill. That should result in the ideal temperature of 165 Fahrenheit. Wings don't retain heat like larger pieces of meat, though, so don't dip much lower than 165 Fahrenheit. Then again, some people like the texture of the meat when it's a little more well done. So feel free to cook them to a slightly higher temperature if that's you. Now, you might think your wings are cooked through because they're charred and crispy on the outside, but if you used high heat, there's a chance they're not cooked through in the middle. The larger your wings, the more likely that is. Just because restaurants that sell chicken wings often use low-quality chicken, that doesn't mean you should. In fact, grilling chicken wings at home is an opportunity to buy better chicken. Wings are a relatively inexpensive piece of meat compared to chicken breasts, so long as you don't wait until the Saturday before the Super Bowl to buy them. If you can afford it, go for free-range organic chicken, or at least something that didn't lead to a chicken having an unhealthy life in a feedlot. FYI, Only chicken labeled raised without antibiotics were actually raised without them. Even organic chickens can be given antibiotics before coming out of the egg, or on their very first day outside of the egg. And whether you can afford higher quality or more expensive chicken or not, remember to save those bones for stock. Chicken wings are the perfect opportunity to create your own homemade broth for soups, and basically everything that needs some extra flavor.
Baby, you got a stew going.
Yes, you can cook frozen meat directly on the grill without thawing it in advance, from wings to thighs to breasts. But you might not end up with the juiciest results, and your cooking time is going to be a lot longer. The heat can cause the outsides of the chicken to burn before the wings cook all the way through. If you really want to cook them from frozen, it's best to cook the wings gently over indirect heat first, to make sure the insides get almost cooked through. Use that handy meat thermometer here. Then move them to direct heat to finish. They may take double the time versus cooking in 20 minutes for fresh or thawed wings. But be careful not to go too low with the temperature or you could end up with food poisoning. The safest way to cook frozen chicken wings is to thaw them fully first in the fridge overnight. And make sure the heat isn't too low in your grill. This might sound silly because who's not going to turn their wings? But it's an easy one to mess up if you're preoccupied with your backyard barbecue party. You leave the wings a little too long and they've cooked so much on one side that if you turn them over, they'll be bone dry. This is another example of one of those times when you should use a timer. The point of a grilled chicken wing is usually to have a consistently crispy outside. You're not usually aiming for one that's charred on one side and soft and gelatinous on the other. The good news is that with all the fat in chicken wings, you don't even have to worry about turning them too often. A lot of recipes say to turn the wings occasionally, which seems like a safe bet unless you're a true chicken wing gourmet who'll die without perfect grill marks. So set that timer multiple times and reap the rewards. If you leave the lid open on a barbecue grill, you'll lose all the heat. It's fine to open it to turn, flip, or rotate the meat, but you set that temperature to where it needs to be for a reason. And the worst thing would be to end up with undercooked chicken. Keeping the grill closed also helps the chicken cook all the way through, instead of just being cooked on the outside from the flicks of flame that jump up through the grill. The second worst thing would be to waste all that gas or charcoal and also have to wait an extra hour for your chicken wings to be ready. Yes, the wings will eventually cook if you leave the lid off, but that's not very efficient. Do you really want to wait twice as long for your wings for no good reason? So keep a lid on it. You only need to do a major cleaning on your barbecue once a year, but you do need to brush it clean regularly. When you brush it, though, is a matter of contention. Some experts say to do it after cooking, once the grill has cooled a little. But Weber says you should preheat your grill well and then scrape it immediately before cooking, because the preheating gets rid of a lot of what's left anyway, making your work easier. Either way, you definitely do want to brush it or wipe it before cooking something else on it. Otherwise, you'll have gross black bits sticking to your food. Besides being unattractive, it can make you sick. The reason you don't do a major cleanup every time is that you want some of that blackened grease to stick around on the sides of the barbecue and add flavor. But food residue should definitely be burned and scraped off before cooking something else. And be careful about using wire brushes, which can end up in your meal and potentially cause serious harm. The number one mistake people make when grilling chicken wings is probably adding a sugary sauce too soon and having it burn. If you add a sugary sauce, or any sauce, too soon, it can wreck your chicken wings. The sugar will burn quickly, which is why you should add it just a little before the end.
Hey, what's on this corn? Barbecue sauce?
Sam's blood.
Adding any sauce too soon can also keep the chicken wings from crisping up, which defeats the purpose of grilling them. If you wanted gelatinous wings, you could have just baked them or, heaven forbid, boiled them. So don't slather on the barbecue sauce or honey garlic until your well-chosen recipe tells you to do so. Generally anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes before they're done. Or dip the chicken wings in sauce after cooking. Or toss them directly in the sauce after cooking for full immersion. But make sure to serve them right away before the skin softens and the meat cools.